Humanity, through its irresponsible behavior, has exhausted the natural resources of Earth, making it almost uninhabitable. In a burst of lucidity, pressed by the irreversible degradation of the planet, the great nations are forced to put aside their differences and share their knowledge in order to create the most vast spaceship ever constructed. Thus, the Black Angel project is launched. The Black Angel, the first intergalactic frigate in history, must transport the genetic heritage of humanity beyond known worlds over a journey that is likely to last several thousand years. Her crew will be composed of only robots. Because no nation is willing to trust creation of the AI that will control this crew to any other nation, a compromise is found. The Black Angel will be co-managed by several AIs. The utility of each decision will be evaluated in VP, the validation process. At the completion of this long and perilous voyage, when a new inhabitable planet has been reached, the AI that has earned the most VP will be entrusted with reawakening humanity and overseeing its new start. All the reports are in agreement. The Black Angel is approaching Spes, a planet that meets all the requirements for future development of the human race. Take advantage of our approach to maintain the good relations you have gradually woven with the benevolent alien species populating the galaxy, and watch out for the dreaded Ravagers, who would do anything to prevent you from reaching Spes.
So what the heck is Black Angel? Black Angel is a board game that I picked up from PAX one year, pretty much entirely because it looked complicated. It has a lot of iconography, which is similar to if you've ever played Race for the Galaxy. That's actually a really good reference point for it. In the game, you play one of 4 AIs in charge of maintaining the titular spaceship in order to prove your worth as a shepherd for humanity. It's a kind of mix of competitive and cooperative elements to it, similar to the Legend of Zelda Four Swords games. You need to work together in order to get things done around the ship, but at the end of the day, somebody has more points. There are 3 major boards you'll be concerned with while playing the game. The first is the main game board, which represents the inside of the ship. It contains all the actions you perform, as well as your dice action pools, technology tiles, and VP trackers. The next board is composed of the space strips. These strips together mark the Black Angel's passage through the galaxy. And finally, you have your individual player boards that contain your player technology tiles and your resources. Each player should take 2 discs corresponding to their board color and place one on the VP tracker at 5 and the other on one of the compartments closest to them. Each player board should have 3 technology tiles on them in a diagonal pattern. For resources, the board should have 1 diamond resource, 1 debris cube, and 1 shuttle. Each player should take 8 robots of their color, placing 5 in the central break room of the shipboard and 1 in each of the 3 colored workstations around it. Deal out 4 black technology tiles to their allotted space, and 1 of each of the 3 remaining technology tiles to theirs. At the start of the game, each player draws 1 of each colored mission card and 1 red Ravager card. The mission cards represent the various alien species you've encountered and will help you gain resources and VP, as well as activate the technology tiles on your player board. The Ravagers are a bunch of jerks who will attempt to destroy the Black Angel at every turn. Also, take 1 of each colored die and put it into your player area for use later. On the shipboard, there are 6 numbered locations that represent the 6 actions you can take on your turn. Once the players have their hands, deal out 2 Ravager cards to represent an attack on the ship. The cards will have a number on them that shows where to place them. When you place a Ravager, put a corresponding damage token onto the location as well. More on what that means later. Players should now roll their dice. Once rolled, place all of the dice in the ring outside the break room corresponding to your player color. Dice are how you perform most actions on the board in Black Angel, and the dice go from 0, which is the star, to 3. And with that, we're ready for our first turn. Now, in your turn, you'll be performing one of 2 sequences. Sequence A or Sequence B. Sequence A is the most common, so we're going to go over that one first. Now, the first part of Sequence A is the activation of technology tiles on the player board. And in order to do that, you have to play a mission card of a matching color to the row or column that has the tiles that you wish to activate. So if I wanted to activate this green tile here, I could place this green mission card either to the side or to the bottom. And what this green mission card will actually allow you to do is this allows you to build an additional worker unit or move a worker unit that is in the break area into one of the dice repository areas on the ship. This yellow tile card allows you to either build one ship resource, this guy right here, or move a ship that is already deployed up to 2 spaces. And lastly, this tile allows you to just take one diamond resource or take one debris cube resource. Now, the red Ravager cards, however, act as wild cards. They can activate any color. And the other thing to keep in mind, the red Ravager cards in your hand, this is the only thing that they are useful for. So I'll generally like to tell people that if you have a red Ravager card, use it. Now, so for example, if I had a situation like this, I would actually be able to activate both of these two at the same time. Let's just say for now that I chose not to do anything on my board for the first turn. After the board activation, it is the dice selection phase, where you must select a dice from somewhere inside of the central area in order to play one of the actions. Now, the dice does not necessarily have to come from your area of the board. Since I'm playing as red, I've got a 3, a 2, and a 1 here. Now, for the first action I want to take the yellow action, so I would actually use my yellow die. But the star value is 0. So to do something about that, I can actually discard one of my debris cubes, and that will allow me to bang this die over to its opposing face. So it just flips it over. So now I actually have a 2 that I can use. And then I want to use that here. I'll go over what all of the different action spaces actually mean in the next section, but for right now, let's just say that I performed the action that was associated with that die. After that action is done, this die then moves back into the storage area to signal that it has been used and can no longer be played. And then I will actually draw a mission card matching the color of the die that I actually used. And that is sequence A. Now, let's go over what the actions on the board actually are. So, starting with the one that I performed last time. The technology purchase action allows you to actually purchase some of these tiles that you see over here. You can see above them, they all have a certain pip cost. You're able to purchase as many tiles as you have pips. So let's say, for example, that this guy were actually a 3. Then I can purchase this one here and then this one. Or if instead of that one, I can purchase this one. So for now, let's just say that I purchase these 2 tiles. Now, the regular tiles will not be replenished as they are purchased. However, the black advanced tiles are replenished as purchased. Now, to actually put the tiles on your board, you have to insert them at one of these arrowed locations that you see around here. And when you insert a tile at an arrowed location, it'll actually shift over / up any of the tiles that it would encounter. So let's say I'm going to take this green one and I'm going to put it up top. I'd slide it in here like this. Now the black tiles are special for multiple reasons. One of which is that they can only be inserted in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, this particular black tile, essentially what it means is for every Ravager in my hand at the end of the game, I can get 2 victory points. Now, the catch with that is that it can only be up to a maximum of 4 victory points worth of value. Now, to fix that, we have to go over ejecting tiles. So, as you probably guessed, if you keep on inserting technology tiles, eventually one is going to get to this end and then get pushed off. Now, these normally colored tiles, when they're pushed off, they're discarded and no longer provide you with any sort of benefit. The black tiles, however, once they're pushed off, they go into one of these 3 locations here. And these locations will actually allow you to increase the amount of victory points that a technology tile slotted in that location is worth by sliding mission cards underneath them. Now, we'll go over how you get those mission cards here later. Next up, we have the blue, gray, steel. Let's call this color steel. The steel action. Now, what this one allows you to do is when you place your die here, you can take up that many damage cubes from locations on the board. Now, we have damage cubes in location 3 and in location 6 from the initial state of the game. Fortunately, I have a number 3 die that I can place here that will allow me to take these two up. Now, I have two options with these debris cubes that I pulled up. I can put them into my resource area, which I can use to later to bang dies to their opposing faces, or I can put them onto some of my technology tiles to actually activate their effects. Now, this is the only time that you can put these cubes onto the technology tiles. So you can't just go to your activate step and then put those on there. It has to be when you repair something on the ship. So I'm going to activate this one. This tile allows me to just gain a victory point. So I'll move my guy up to 6. And of course the die returns into the storage area. Now, the green action location, I can take however many pips I put down worth of Ravagers off the ship. However, in order to activate this location right now, I have to resolve the Ravager that's face up. This particular icon means that we damage the location one clockwise space from wherever this Ravager is. Just so you know, this one here means that if you were to ever activate this location, you would have to damage one of the die that is in the supply. And you would signify that by actually putting a damage cube on the die. That means that whoever winds up with this die, it will roll at a -1. Now, since I actually have enough to get these two guys, we'll take the 2 of them out, and they go into my hand. And personally, I like to flip them over. And then that would be it. However, I want to do one quick little illustration, because one of the rules for dealing with Ravagers is that, so as you can see by this sort of outline here, you can put up to 3 Ravagers down in any given location. You only have to deal with the topmost card in the location. So if we draw one from here, perfect. So this one goes into the next slot here. Tabletop Simulator doesn't play too nicely with that, but whatever. So let's just say that we had those 2 before. If I were to play this card here, in order to activate it now, instead of doing the damage a location, I would have to actually discard 1 card of any color in order to actually activate it. The other sort of gotcha for this, in this specific scenario, is that if you are trying to remove a Ravager from a location that has multiples, you must remove all of those Ravagers, or at least as many as you can first. So there's 2 here, and there's 1 at the 3 location. If I play the 2 pips, I cannot take this card here before I take these 2 here. Now, if I just had a 1, then I would be forced to take this 1 here. But since I had this 2, I have to take both of them from this location. Now, you probably noticed that I skipped over 1 of each color, and they all have the same icon. That's because these all perform the same function, just for different colored cards and die. These are all mission deployment points. And essentially, when you play a die here, you get that many pips of movement on a ship. Now, the ships are the resource in the upper corner. You actually, to play a ship, you put a man inside, and he pilots it around the outside of the ship on the spaceport here. So let's say I wanted to play a green mission from my hand. Now, let's say that it comes around to my turn. I don't have any more die. I want to actually take one of these green die that I see. The purple player seems to have locked away his green die, so I can't get that one. However, white has not. So what I can do is I can take a resource, give it to white, and then immediately use one of the die in his location. Now, the other thing on this is you cannot use a debris cube to bang a die that you purchased from another player. You have to use it at whatever that face value is. So, white is a little bit salty because he wanted to do that mission, but whatever. Now I get 2 movement on my ship away from the Black Angel. So starting here, we are at 0, and then let's say we do 1, 2. Once you are actually at a corresponding location, you can play the mission card from your hand onto that location. Your ship automatically docks in one of the 2 ship dock locations on there, and you have to take one of the worker units that you have and place it on this circular ownership space. And yes, if you do not have enough workers to actually claim ownership, you cannot play a mission. This one has when you place on the ownership space, you actually get 1 ship from the reserves back on your board, so that's actually pretty good for me. And so the other important thing to note on this is that he actually has, in the upper left-hand corner, you see he has a green technology tile. Now what that will do is that will replenish this technology deck by sliding everything up and inserting the proper color here. Now the other thing that deploying this mission card will actually do is activate additional Ravagers to attack our ship. When you play a mission card, you look at all of the surrounding hexes, and for every one of these Ravager symbols you see, you pull that many Ravager cards. So if I had used either this location here or this location for that mission card, we would be facing a lot more. Fortunately, we only have 1, so we draw. He goes into location 6. Location 6 is damaged. Just so you're aware, this particular Ravager, to play this location, you have to discard a mission card of any color from your hand. Now, the other thing with this mission card is it gives you something else to do with your die on your turn. So for this one, if I were to, say, use another green die and play it here instead of a location on the Black Angel, I would be able to sacrifice 1 worker from the break area in order to get 2 victory points immediately. And now, just so you know, the ones in my hand, this yellow mission card, if you play a yellow die on it, you get a ship converted into 2 victory points. This one, you trade in a diamond resource and 1 card of any color in order to get 3 victory points. Now, for every pip, you are able to perform that action that number of times, so up to 3. So if I put a green 3 on this one and then sacrificed 3 of my worker units, I could get 6 victory points total from this. Now, there's one other type of mission card that I would want to go over. So, this mission card doesn't have a space for die on it because you don't activate it directly. Instead, it's a mission card that gets activated when it is jettisoned. That's what the 2 red arrows you see pointing down are. For this one in particular, when this card is jettisoned, you gain 3 victory. The owner of this tile gains 3 victory points for every green mission card that they have. And then I'm going to just leave that there as an example for something a little bit later, and let's say that pink actually got that one. Now we get to Sequence B. Sequence B is when the game actually starts really picking up. So the first thing that happens in Sequence B is you reset your die. And part of that is for every die in your area, you lose as many victory points as pip face values. So right now I'm the red player, I have 0, so I don't lose any victory points. However, white would lose 3 victory points. And let's see, purple would actually lose 5 victory points. Ditto for steel if they were to do sequence B. Typically, you don't want to do sequence B unless you absolutely have to. And keep in mind, you can purchase die from other players in order to sort of stave that off a little bit longer. However, I've been in situations where I had nothing left in my area but zeros, so I take a sequence B in order to just sort of get around that. Now, the other part of resetting die is you take 1 die from each of the colored story areas and you get as many die from that area as you have workers inside of this area. So for my guy, I get 1 green, 1 steel, and since I put another worker in here, I get 2 yellows. And yes, there are a limited number of additional die that are actually available for everyone to get. So let's just pull these out here, do a reroll. Lovely. And then put them all back into my space. Now, the other thing that you can do at this point is, well, if I had a diamond resource, I could pay it back in order to actually take one of my die and put it inside of this locked location to prevent anyone else from taking it. This is the only time that you can pay to have one of your die put into this location. But I don't have a diamond, so he has to stay out here. Now, the next part of Sequence B is the cleaning up of the player board. So this basically means anything that you have around these edges here, those will get discarded. And any debris cubes that you've got, those will also get discarded as well. And then the last part of Sequence B is to move the Black Angel. So we come to our space board. The Black Angel moves forward 1 space. And then the back actually gets jettisoned. Now, purple actually owns this mission card here, which has the jettison symbol on it. So at this point, purple's little machine man goes back to the supply, not back to the break room. He'll deal with his card later. For the board, you flip over that tile and you set it in front. Now the game is going to continue like this until eventually you catch up to this Seps icon here. Once you catch up to the Seps icon, the Seps planet will actually appear. And once the Black Angel actually sets foot onto Seps, that's the end of the game. But now, since purple actually owned this mission card when it went off the edge, he's actually able to place it on the corresponding color on the right side of his board. So if he winds up getting any of those black advanced tiles, he's now able to slot one here and make it worth up to a maximum of 6 victory points. Now the other thing to keep in mind for Sequence B is that this is just an example that I'm running. In a real game, typically all the players will be running low on die at the same time. So you'll get basically 4 movements all at once. And I find that a lot of people think that this game is actually very slow, just because it takes a lot of rounds for everyone to spend their first set of die. But then suddenly, first person Sequence Bs, then the next person, then the next person, then the next person. And you can see that is a lot of movement all in one turn. And also this card would have been discarded. So, something to keep in mind.
So that's a lot of stuff. And I didn't even go over some of the more nuanced rules and interactions, or even the single-player module that's included in the game. This was just meant to give you a basic turn flow. I find that the actual instructions for the game are terrible for learning how to play, but great for reference once you actually know what to do. It even has a listing of all the symbols that you can encounter on the cards and tiles, explaining exactly what they do. But after a few turns, you'll probably figure out what they all mean intrinsically. So what's the appeal? Well,
I love complicated looking board games that wind up being simple and straightforward once you know how to play. And that is Black Angel in spades. Your first turn will take up a lot of time, but once everyone gets comfortable and knows what to do and how to plan their moves ahead, it picks up really quick. There's also a manageable amount of randomness to the game. The dice you roll are useful even if you get a 0, because you can either use it for a mission card or you can bang it to the other side, or you can even buy somebody else's die to use theirs in place of your own. Then there's the competitive/cooperative aspect to it, where you aren't directly really pitted against each other. You can try to build your game engine pretty much unmolested by everybody else playing the game, and sort of the most direct competition that you can get is a race to see who can fix the ship before the other person. All of that said, the game still does take a while to finish. It's a 60-plus minute game even for a group that knows exactly what they're doing. It also puts you at the mercy of the draw sometimes. I've had games where all of my mission cards were pretty garbage, and it was a struggle to pivot away from using them to try and score victory points, because it can take some time for it to become clear if your strategy isn't going to work in the game. This is what I like to call an engineer game. It's for your friend that likes to build circuits in Minecraft, or that plays Factorio to unwind, or that plays Twilight Imperium and has a favorite edition. Third,